Welcome to the DIY Writer Show with the mild-mannered, slightly heroic host, Jeff Bacon.
This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer Podcast. Today, we have a treat. We have the author of Murder by the Seaside. It's a Simon Crofts mystery written by Brian G. Brian, how you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. Tell us a little bit about your book.
My book is a story of a scenes of crime or CSI unit run by Simon Crofts on the south coast of England, doing their normal job, attending crime scenes, etc., and then suddenly get called into the big murder. And this is the murder without any suspects to start with. Because of that, the book also follows the victim and obviously the offender early doors. So you're following all three lives: Simon Crofts, you've got Bethany, a young girl, and you've got Stevie, who's a travelling salesman. And they meet up, and through a coincidence of events, ends up with Simon Crofts having to investigate. And the book's written slightly different because I wanted to tell a story from the CSI side of things rather than a detective. Most murder crime books are just detectives of one rank or another, but my background is from crime scenes, so I just wanted to do it from the CSI side of things, and hopefully that'll come over to the readers.
Cool. So you worked in a CSI unit, basically a crime scene unit for.
Yeah.
How many years did you work in that?
27.
27. Ouch. All right.
Man and boy.
So a lot of the things that you put into the book are based on your own personal experience from being a crime scene investigator.
Yes and no. I mean, I'd always wanted to write a book, same as most people, and then circumstances evolved that I could, and I decided to base it on a character who was a CSI. And literally the characters, I've had people who've read the book who say, that's so-and-so, and it's like, no, it's not. It's based on some of the people I've met over the years, and some of the scenarios, and just in general, trying to look at it from the CSI's side of things, which I think is quite unusual. There's not many books written by or using the main character as a CSI.
Okay. So when you were explain to me why that's different than from a detective. I mean, what are the different things that you would see from a CSI perspective versus the detectives?
A detective uses lots of different types of evidence. So they'll use things like CCTV, or nowadays mobile phone records, etc., etc. But one of the most important things, and I would say that, of course, is the forensic evidence. And so the detectives will use it. And I always say that a murder inquiry is a bit like a jigsaw. You've got all the different things. You've got the interviews, you've got the suspects, you've got all these little bits of the jigsaw, and one of the big pieces of the jigsaw is the forensic evidence, and without it, hardly any major crimes would ever go to court. So it is a very important part of the investigation, and I'm sure detectives will tell you that as well. But as I say, normally when a crime writer is writing about that sort of thing, the forensic side of things is just a throwaway. Oh, the forensic team went and they found it, and that's it, sort of thing. And they add that to the story, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I've gone into a lot more detail of what the CSIs do, how they feel at scenes, and that sort of thing. And that's, I think, and some of the reviews I've had have actually said that they enjoyed that, because it's not something a lot of crime writers would be able to write about because they haven't experienced it.
Sure. So what are I mean, you've read a lot of books. What are some of the you read it and you go, oh, that's not the way it works, and you know what I mean? You read some things and it's like, yeah, that's not real life. That's Hollywood. That's all in the movies, type thing. It doesn't work that way. I mean, do you have any instances of that where you took it and said, okay, I'm going to do it this way because this is actually real life type?
Yeah, I think books aren't as bad. It's mainly TV programs, and I had to give up watching police style TV programs many years ago because I just every time start shouting at the screen. It's like that, and then the most important thing originally was wearing PPE, the white suits and the gowns and gloves and masks and everything, and for years CSIs would be sometimes wearing it, but what would always make me laugh, especially if it's something where you've got a main character who's a detective and you'll have the CSIs in the background all gloved up, masked up, crawling about, and then the main characters just walk in normal clothes and just pick something up without even asking it, and it's just like, yeah. And
main characters can't contaminate. That's a rule. They
exactly
don't.
They don't look right with a mask and goggles on. And it was quite funny because the American TV series CSI, which probably started 15 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
We actually had in our line of work, it was called the CSI effect, because you would go to, for instance, a burglary in town, and you'd take some photographs and do some fingerprinting and everything, and recover whatever you could, and then you'd finish. And the member of the public who's watched CSI Miami the night before is saying, "Is that what you're going to do?" And they're like, what else? And it'd be like, well, on CSI Miami last night, we saw them do this, this, and this. It's just like, no, we don't do that. And we always used to have a bit of a joke that, the CSI Miami and all the spin-offs, their characters, they were just so good looking, and none of our staff looked like that at all.
So in a book, CSIs are not good looking. Okay, got it. Just in case I write one.
But I did, and I used to say that, and some of our staff didn't think it was funny, but I did have to tell them I was joking. It really glamorized the role, and
you didn't have David Caruso strutting in, going, "Yeah, so."
And you can't get a hologram of someone's face from a drop of blood in a murder scene either.
Wait, that doesn't work.
But that was the thing, and as I said, it was known as a CSI effect, and a lot of scenes of crime departments in the UK was just sort of saying, every member of the public you go and meet now has watched the whole series, box set of every CSI series, and then you turn up and take a few fingerprints, and they're not impressed. Is that all you're going to do?
What I think is funny, and I have no experience in this, but when you watch those types of movies and they scan the fingerprint, and they have this database and it pops up in like 20 seconds. It's like, I've worked with a lot of databases in my line of work. No big database does that.
No.
The only one that does is Amazon, and that one's only like 30% right at times when you're trying to search for something. But
and up until we do have, obviously nowadays we have got digital, and we've got cameras that can record and send straight away. But up and sort of 5-6 years ago, we were still taking a fingerprint and driving it over to the fingerprint bureau to have it looked at straight away. At the time when CSI was on CSI Miami, were doing the sort of scanning and, as you say, getting a result within seconds. So it's so far-fetched,
I like the hologram tables, where now here's the building, here's the shooter right here, and they kind of draw this whole thing up. And
I know, they're amazing. I've yet to see one. We still tend to use a whiteboard and marker pen, really.
Everybody probably does. It's just on TV where they have that, that CGI effect where it's high tech, whatever.
It'd be boring otherwise. It would be boring. And that was the other thing, is that our role is I wouldn't say boring, because it's not, but it can be quite mundane. And you spending a couple of hours just taking some tapings off of a carpet. You know, it's not really good TV, is it? So that's why they had to sort of sex it up a bit.
You wouldn't want to watch that for an episode, just somebody taping up.
Exactly. So that's why it came about. But it did have, as I say, the effect of sort of almost making our job so different to what it was portrayed on TV. And I must admit, now in the UK, a lot of the TV dramas have actually come up, and they've used advisors. You can tell they have by some of the stuff that's being done now. So that's good as well.
Yeah. I always imagine that if there's ever a murder scene at my house and they start, taking the pieces of tape and going after the carpet like that, I'm gonna have a lot of explaining to do. I don't know. I just I'm not sure if they'll find anything about the murderer, but they'll find a whole bunch of other shit. They'll be like,
they can tell you your whole life story. That is one of the things, really. It's that in depth, and because of that, you've got to be meticulous, and it's obviously quite a a slow process, and as I say, that's why that would never be much fun on the TV. They want the whole sort of crime solved within a 40-minute episode. So yeah, things have got to speed up a bit.
So how do you handle that in your book, though?
Well, hopefully I've tried to explain what I've just been talking about, really, that our job isn't like the TV programs, and that it is very slow and meticulous, and sometimes it can be the tiniest bit of evidence in one fiber or one drop of blood or partial fingerprint that can actually solve a crime. And you can't do that by just bombing in somewhere and taking a few photographs and gathering everything up. It is a very slow process, and especially when you've got a murder that is what we call a cat A, where you've got no idea who's done it. A lot of crime or murder, serious assault tend to be sort of people who know each other, whether it's not always relatives, but people having a fight and it goes wrong, one of them falls over and bumps their head. That sort of assault. When you get a cat A murder where we've got no idea who's done it, you don't know when you walk into that room or into that house where the tiny bit of evidence is going to be, and it could be in any of the 10 rooms in a house. So you have got to really deal with it meticulously.
The first question that kind of pops into my mind as you're talking about this, and you talk about just the tiniest little piece of evidence, what's the weirdest thing that you ever found that solved some sort of a mystery?
Wow.
I'm just something that just sticks out in your mind, like that would make no sense, but it's actually something that kind of connected.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Probably not weird, but when we first, when I first started, obviously DNA was around. It's always been around, but when it first started getting used for crimes, my first used handkerchief, let's leave it at that. That was quite crusty, and getting a DNA profile off that, and it'd been dropped by the burglar. That was quite an unusual one, because up until then we'd never had anything like that, And of course, because of saliva, we have like drinks and cigarette ends and those sort of things. So when that all first started happening, which was probably in the mid-90s, when DNA was starting to be used for crime reporting, those sort of things were brilliant. And then again, going on to some of the murder scenes, finding some blood, tiny drops of blood in the corner of a place that has been cleaned. That was always the bit that we liked the best. Make it slightly harder if someone thinks they've cleaned down, or sometimes you'd hear that an offender was forensically aware, which was always a good challenge. They're not they might think they're forensically aware, but not always.
I don't know how you remove your physical footprint from a place that you've been in based on what I've seen and read. It just, the hair, you'd have to basically be in a suit and be bald, hairless, And I mean, and still there's probably something that would get you caught. I mean, if somebody found it, but I mean,
There is. We had a series of robberies from jewelers in our area, and they were actually wearing the white forensic suits that we wear, and gloves and masks, and they were literally going to the outside window of good quality jewelers, smashing with sledgehammers, and then just grabbing everything, and it was all done within 2 minutes. And they would go away and they'd change cars, and that was great. But what they also did was took their suits off, which not only covered in the glass, but had all their DNA that they've been when they've been wearing it, all the sweat and whatever. So yeah, you can cover yourself up, but you've then got to remember to destroy that as well, because those coveralls that they dumped, and a member of the public saw them, sort of jumped out near a big bin, threw all the white suits in there and went off and called the police. I've just seen something strange. These blokes have just screamed off in a car and dropped a load of white suits into the, and it was just like,
that happens all the time, right?
So yeah, that you can be forensically aware, and you can try not to leave anything, but it's very hard not to, one way or another, whether it's fibers, whether it's hair, whether it's DNA, shoe prints or fingerprints, you'll leave something.
And that's the basis of most of those TV shows, is that it's that one little piece of whatever that gets them caught, whether it's a hair from a Shar-Pei that you happen to have bought at an expensive auction, or whatever it is, I've got you, type thing.
Yeah, it's quite funny how unique some of those one bits of evidence are in sort of the movies, but in reality it's not quite as unique. It's usually something quite simple. But the last strand of Vincent van Gogh painting that was caught in someone's fingernail doesn't really happen in real life, you see.
Really? You're really blowing the heck out of my my evening TV watching now. None of it's true.
No, it isn't. It is, and as I say, it's quite funny because the British murder sort of crime things have actually come into line, and some of them are very good, and almost faultless. But I think the American ones still need a little bit of catching up to do.
We like the intense drama and the sensational, it's got to be graphically appeasing. So,
and as I say, and the main reason is that, you've got to have a crime and you've got to solve it and come up with some weird and wonderful evidence, all within probably 40 minutes without the ad breaks. So that's quite unreal in real life, obviously.
My favorite one from just the straight CSI was the meat bullet. Did you ever see that one?
No.
Oh,
I didn't used to watch it.
This guy uses a revolver, and he pulls the slugs out of the bullets, and he takes just regular hamburger, and he freezes it with liquid nitrogen, and presses it into the bullet. So he reloads it, but the actual slug is just hamburger. So when he fires it, it kills the guy, but then it's just hamburger inside this wound. It was hilarious.
Never come across that one, actually.
That isn't an everyday occurrence in the UK.
Not really, no.
And they caught him by the kind of hamburger he had or something. I mean, it was just the dumbest damn thing. And it's just like, but you watch it because it's so stupid, but it's just like,
it didn't have a tiny bit of the wrapper from a McDonald's or something like that in it, did it? That gave it away.
Yeah. Oh yes, the McDonald's employee took the quarter pounder home and froze it. It was, like I said, it was really funny. I just kind of watched. It's like, okay, so he's got this revolver loaded with this meat bullet, And how fast is that going to, thaw out? I mean, it's just a little piece of hamburger in a piece of metal. And then, there's a little bit of heat when the gunpowder, goes off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that, really keep I mean, there's all these things. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work.
So is it going to be medium rare or rare by the time?
I think it's medium rare. I think that's what really set it off, is it was discolored from the actual wound.
That's right. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
dear.
just a little
That's
browning.
why, but you've just explained why I didn't used to watch those programs very often.
Like I said, it's the, when I first watched it, I'm like, oh, really? Okay. And then it came on a rerun. It's I have to watch this again because this is this is just classic.
And as I said before as well, the makeup and hair of the female CSIs in that compared to the girls that we used to sort of just crack us up, those sort of perfect Hollywood style makeup ready for when they're just finishing the crime scene for about 6 hours.
It
doesn't work.
the backstories of some of those characters are just kind of funny, like I was a stripper, but now I'm a CSI.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Nobody plain gets a job like that in those sort of shows, do they? You can't just do a bit of study and then get the job. You've got to have some sort of random background that means you're going to be unique. And again, that adds to the mystique around the role, you see, and that's the bit that was quite funny for us to watch evolving.
You have to have something that comes up and bites you in the butt in season 2. Otherwise,
that's right. Yeah. You don't find out that bit until the second season. Yeah. If they've made it to third or fourth season, someone's revelation from something that happened in their childhood or something is just going to be unusual, isn't it?
There was there's quite a bit of crime shows, and I think the funniest ones are probably the reality TV ones, which reality TV is not really reality. No. I mean, there's a couple out there where it's just somebody saying, well, this is what we found and this is what we did, and they kind of summarize the case or whatever, and those are kind of more documentary, but the ones that come from the raw camera footage of this guy was murdered, and the amount of improv that's used during the actual investigation, I think is just hilarious. You can watch about 15-20 minutes of it and then you have to shut it off because it's even worse than the fully produced shows.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know. I sort of sometimes joke nowadays that are there any actual police or ambulance patrols in this country that go out without a camera crew anymore? Because it just seems to be wall to wall. Everyone's on TV. Every area of the country, sort of every sort of ambulance is the latest thing as well. And it's just like, yeah. Are there any that haven't got any filming with them? Especially now, because of course they're all wearing body worn footage, yep. So it does help string those programs together. But it is quite funny watching
them. There's a TV show on over here called Cops. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it's all body cam footage. Whatever. I have a couple of friends that are cops, and I was talking to them. Oh yeah, that's actually pretty light compared to some of the stupid crap we see. The guy running across the parking lot, getting tased while he's handcuffed in his underwear, that kind of crap.
Yeah.
No, that's normal.
Yeah,
we call that Tuesday here. That's just all kind of funny. There's another I think it's a YouTube series or whatever where somebody, I don't know what this guy does, but he gets picked up every week and he has a cam on his dash where he argues with cops. Yeah, and it's got to be, it's got to be all made up, just because I don't know any cop that would start off talking the way they do. And the guy sitting there arguing, I don't know any guy that could sit in his car arguing like that and not get arrested.
No. And it's all sort of slightly set up.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you my insurance card, and you don't need to see my driver's license. You know who I am. It's like, dude,
Yeah, here we go again.
Yeah, in real life, if anybody actually does that, that's the start of a really bad day.
Yeah.
Shut up, do what you're told. But so you have this book, and you said you're working on a follow-up.
Yes, yeah. I sort of I wrote it. I finished it about 2 years ago, and it took me a while to get a publisher. And again, because I had no background in as an author, I didn't realise how hard it is to get a publisher. And I think I had well, no, I didn't think I had 64 rejections.
Mm-hmm.
But
You got off easy.
Exactly. And I always remember someone on Twitter, I think it was, saying that she was glad she didn't give up at 100 rejections because she was published on 104, and that always kept me going, sort of thing. And like I say, a lot of the publishers are very nice, and they do reply and say, we enjoyed it, but it's not our cup of tea, or that's what I say anyway.
Yeah.
So they're quite pleasant. So it did take a while. So obviously I finished it 2 years ago, and then slowly just started the second one. I didn't really get into the second one until it was published, the first one, because I didn't know how people would react. But I've had lots of very positive reviews. Even people that know me have been positive about it. So I was happy with how that went. And so yeah, I'm sort of carrying on Crofts and his team into another different type of murder, but along the same sort of themes, coming from looking at it from the CSI side of things.
Mm-hmm. So as far as drama points within the book, I assume that some of the scene or the crime scenes or whatever are a little horrific, I assume.
Yeah.
As far as that, being a coming from that profession, how does that affect you? Does that, when you write and read something like that, does that bother you at all, or is that?
No, it's funny. Loads of people, and I have seen colleagues who've it's affected a lot over the years, and so it was always something that I was aware of. But yeah, things didn't affect me. I sometimes wondered why. I'm worried that I wasn't being affected. Mainly worried because I thought one day it's all going to come out, and I'll hit me in one go. But no, I just over the years coped with it, and as I said, helped a few colleagues through when they had quite serious bouts of PTSD and that sort of thing. So it was always bubbling around in the background. But one of the things I did start was looking into debriefing our own staff, because when I started in 1990, we were some of the first civilians. It had been all police officers up until about 5 years before. And it was very much old school sort of, well, get yourself down the mortuary and make sure you don't faint in front of a dead body sort of thing, that sort of thing. And there was no sort of coaxing or teaching or nurturing new staff. It was just like, send them out to that, see what they cope like. And then I also saw some of that group of people then going off sick later on in their life. And so I got me thinking that, we're missing out something here. So I really started looking into debriefing our staff and attended quite a lot of different courses of that. And I'd like to think that looking into it actually helped me, because anyone in that sort of work, you have got quite a lot of images that are stored in your brain that could come out at any time, and how you deal with it and how you keep on top of it.
Right.
Is individually, it's different. Some people like going for a run. Some people like having a few beers. Some people just like, chilling out. So everyone deals with it differently. But what people have to realise is they are susceptible to that sort of incident. and be aware if they start feeling that something's affecting them. You know, we're all human beings. Just because you become a socco or a pathologist or, you know, anything like that, and we are still all human beings. So it's the way that people learn to deal with that sort of images.
Okay. When so is that something that you're able to leave at home or leave at work, and then when you came home?
Yes, I did. And again, everyone's different. You know, I'd luckily to have a happy family home and family life. You know, and would always make sure that work was work, and then you get home to your family, and it's your family life. You know, it's when I think when people tend to take one or the other, and both ways as well, not just one way. You know, some people who've had events going on in their personal life have then brought that into the workplace, and that can actually cause stress as well. So it does work both ways, but I think you do need to make that divisive line between home and family life. And as I say, having a happy family life does help. You know.
Sure. So I assume that you bring that into your books too, the debriefing and the
Yes, yeah,
methods of coping.
Yes, I might think so. Yeah, and because I think now everyone's a little bit better at it. As I said before, you know, it would be, well, you know, I don't need a debrief because I'm been in 20 years and I've seen everything, sort of thing. And in reality, they were the ones that probably needed debriefing more than some of the youngsters who were sort of you know, new to the job and were more aware of how they should be debriefed. So, you know, the old sweats, whether they're in American programs or the British programs or in real life, you know, I think it was one of those sort of macho things that you could cope with everything. And sadly, a lot of people found out that macho isn't a way to cope with things.
Really? Because it works on TV so well.
What was it? The sayings of, oh, well, I'm not going down to one of those is all pink and fluffy. It's just like that doesn't matter. You know, you've got to, you know, as I say, we're all human beings, and how it affects everyone is slightly different. And then some of the ones who could stand it because they were macho, it did work for, obviously, but not all of them.
Yeah. So you have another book that you're working on.
Yeah.
That, what's your time frame on that? Is that just kind of out there and hopefully in the next year or so, or?
Yeah, within the next year, hopefully. As I say, I'm halfway through it, and it's just one of those. Because I'm not a writer. I don't sort of sit down at my desk every morning and think, right, I'm going to write 2,000 words today. I tend to do it when I feel like it, or when I'm prepared for it, you know. And sometimes I'll just think, you know, nothing much going on tomorrow. Yeah, I'll sit and then I'll spend a few hours sort of writing, and then might leave it for a few days. You know,
Sure.
I'm not sort of going to be sitting there plugging away at my laptop all day every day, and I don't think I'd be able to cope with it really, because I think you've got to be in the right frame of mind to do it as well.
That's a little different than what a lot of people do.
It is, because obviously I had a different career and I've written a book after it, whereas some people are obviously wanting to make writing their main job, which must be hard because there's no money in it.
What?
I'm just going to turn my light in here. It's getting a bit. Can you see me all right? That's right.
Yeah, it was getting a little dark, but
well, the sun's gone in since we've been talking. That's why. It's
yeah,
obviously winter here. Can you see me okay now?
Yeah, I can. Yep. Like, yeah, we're probably gonna have to cut this a little bit because can't, you know, the shadows. But I could see the reflection off your laptop, so that was good. No, I think most of the people, there's one lady that I interviewed, and she writes 18 to 20,000 words a day.
Wow.
And she ghostwrites for other people, and she does, it's just like, okay, and that's what she does, and she makes a very good living at it.
Yes, yeah.
And
I think someone who is writing for a living obviously has to do that, because there's no way you would, be able to sustain that if that was sort of part-time sort of thing.
You're not going to do that 200 words a day.
No. And like I say, sometimes I can sit and, if everyone's out, I get a bit of peace. I can sit and, crack out a couple of thousand words in a day, if I'm in the right sort of frame of mind and ready to do it. But other days I can sit down and just think, I don't fancy it today. I think sometimes it's because I do like technical bits of it. You've got to really think about it. I can't just waffle on about rubbish, because there's loads of police officers and CSIs who will pick me up if I make any mistakes.
So that's a good topic. How many people have that have kind of ribbed you a little bit about your book?
None really. Nobody's found anything technical, I don't think. Oh yeah, someone did, because I called someone an air steward stewardess, that was it. And they were like, you can't call them that anymore. They're all what are they called? I can't remember what they're called now, how she explained it. But you can't say she's an air stewardess. They're all just airport. No, are they? Plane staff? I don't know what you call steward and stewardesses nowadays.
I don't know. I guess I just always called them stewards and stewardesses.
I know. You're not allowed to anymore. I think it's something like plane staff or something like that. I don't know. But there was nothing to do with my work. There was just a one-off. But no, and as I say, some people have sort of said, "Oh, I recognise so and so," and it's like, no, that's not him. That's not her.
See, that's one of the things I try not to pay attention to, are all these new labels that they have every other month for different things, because this is more correct, or this is more correct, and it's like, shut up.
You meant to call them cabin crew. That's it. They're not stewards and stewardesses anymore. They're just cabin crew.
Cabin crew. Okay. Yeah. Well, that sounds so much better.
I suppose, yeah, I can understand why.
Can you? Because that would be something you could explain to me if you understand it. Because
I actually did once, about 10 years ago, get told off. I was doing some. I used to give an input to the detectives courses, and I got called to one side afterwards because I'd use the word policeman quite often, and it's police officer, not man anymore.
Oh yes.
So to me, it was like someone is not really concentrating on what I'm saying if they're picking up that. I hope they listen to all the other stuff I said as well.
I get a kick out of I don't know if you're on Facebook or not, but there's a lot of arguments that happen in some of these author groups where they I was just looking at one the other day where they had depicted something in the world. It's a really great fictional book, and this lady is working on book 10, and she's got this cover out there, and it's kind of a it may look a little Native American Indian, American Indian type whatever, but it's not. And their time frame is way before, in her world, it's way before the American Indians would have even been around. It's a totally different world, and whatever. And the premise of her book is Homo sapiens and Sasquatch actually, or Neanderthals actually came together to make the Homo sapiens, and it's all this drama type stuff. It's kind of a cool book. Sasquatch is a big deal over here, and they got into an argument about whether or not she's depicting Native Americans correctly. And it's like, just run with the cover. It was a beautiful cover, but it's just like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, you know, and if you read any of the books, you know, this has nothing to do with Native Americans. You know, the guy, you know, is well built and on a horse and has a feather in his hair because of something he killed. And he thought, oh, look, pretty feather, you know, and oh, that's, you know, you don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think you get it, but that political correctness crap can just go away.
Well, well, you're similar age to me, so having been brought up on cowboy and Indian films when we were youngsters,
Oh yeah.
I just, yeah, none of them would have survived the modern age, would they?
No, they wouldn't. And that would, I mean, that's a shame because there's a lot of good movies out there that are politically incorrect. Here
Yeah.
in America, a lot of Mark Twain's books either have been rewritten or taken out of libraries because at the time the vernacular, the you know, the verbiage that they used was all of a sudden very racist. And it's like,
Of course, yeah.
well, yeah, you know,
So,
what's next? Shakespeare, you know, let's take him out.
well, yeah, there's been a lot in this country about with the slave trade and things like that, because most of this country was built on it.
Right.
And in a lot of towns and cities, you know, areas and statues to these people that made that city famous, paid a lot of money, and you know, their background was obviously slave trade at some stage. And so, you know, it's just like, how far back do we go in history to get rid of these things? You know, it's all getting a bit over the top, really, but still.
Well, if you're going to go back in history to all the way to where slavery didn't exist, I'm pretty sure we're just primordial goo in a pool someplace.
Exactly. You know.
Humans have been screwing with humans all their, you know, for the last at least 14,000 years.
Yes.
But anyway, other than that, do you have anything else to let your readers know or fans or anything?
No, it's hard to say really, because as I say, I'm quite new to all this, and I've just been, when I finally got a publisher and got it published, that day was quite exciting, and just seeing the numbers for the first few weeks was just unbelievable, really. You know, and then to get all the good reviews and to get positive reviews as well helps, you know. And I've just thoroughly enjoying going through this process. You know, it wasn't something I ever really planned. I think everyone says they've got a book in them.
Yeah.
And you know, not many people write that book. And I think it takes, you know, it took a long time to do as well, a few years to write in general. And so, you know, the whole process has been amazing, really. You know, I enjoyed the writing, didn't enjoy the trying to get the publisher, but I enjoyed, you know, since it's gone out on the open market, and it's just a great feeling to bring enjoyment to people. That something that just came as an idea when you're sort of thinking, one day I'm going to write a book. Somebody seeing the book and actually having people read it. My dream is to just be walking along the seaside here and see someone sat there reading my book, though. That hasn't happened yet.
Really? We can probably set that up for you. Just
no, it's got to happen naturally. I was in the park a couple of weeks ago, and I saw someone sat on you know, sort of picnic blanket reading the book, and I just walked over and wouldn't mind. There's quite a few to choose from in Waterstone, so you know, the chances of it being mine is pretty slim, really. But no, I think that would be a random stranger on the train or on a plane or somewhere reading my book has got to be the next goal, really.
I get a kick out of a story that James Patterson tells where they're sitting in a coffee shop that's also a bookstore or something like that. Right? It actually is an airport. And he saw somebody in the shop pick up his book and look at it, kind of read the back, you know, study the cover and then put it back down. And he's like, my heart just dropped. It's like, what did I do wrong? Why didn't you pick it up? Why didn't you buy my book? You know, and he said, you never get over that. And it's like,
no,
you know,
it's like all the rejections when the first two or three, you know, they're quite hurtful. because nobody likes rejection. And then after a while, you just get used to it. And then when you finally get publish it, and I think it's a little bit like that as well. You just got to learn to live with it. It's like there was 1 or 2 reviews. You know, I got loads and loads of 5-star reviews on Amazon, and then suddenly someone gave a 3. It's like, oh my god. And it is a little bit like that. What did I do wrong? Why didn't they like it? I mean, you can't just get 5-star reviews. I think my wife was more upset about it than I was, actually. How dare they?
The group that I run into, we don't actually believe you become a real author until you have a 1 star. Somebody that just hates you for no reason.
I think it was on Twitter last week that someone put their 1-star review, and it said, I've given this a 1 star because it's aimed at teenagers and I'm an adult. And that's all they put. And this author's saying, it says on the back that it's a teenager's book. Someone's bought it by accident. Why then give someone a 1-star review? And it's, as you just said, you know, it's not nice to get bad reviews anyway. But yeah, just suddenly to have a 1 star because it was the wrong category is a bit wrong, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm in an anthology that has a different problem. Before George R. R. Martin announced his new book coming out, The Winds of Winter, we had an anthology that is The Winds of Winter. It's just a bunch of short stories from some authors.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, we had there is no, you can name books the same title. It's just kind of corny or whatever, but we're out there first. And so we're not going to change it, you know, and it's obviously not like a Game of Thrones book, but somebody bought this book because because of the title, it's starting to be combined with other George R. R. Martin books. And so you can do the, you know, buy this for, you know, whatever amount on Amazon. And somebody picked it up and they 1-star reviewed us and said, I bought the wrong book. Okay. You could just return it, you know. Hey, this isn't George R. R. Martin. This is 16 other authors. Oh, wrong book. I should return it. No, I'm going to keep it, which we love.
And give it a 1-star review.
Give it a 1-star because I bought the wrong thing.
I think the other bugbear for me as well, and you probably realise as well, is that when you're struggling to get something published and trying to get it out into the open world, is when you see TV stars plugging their books. And I know all talk shows have always been to plug books or plug their films, but now it really grates because you think, you know, do you know Piers Morgan?
Yeah.
He's on Good Morning Britain now, and he plugs his book most mornings. And then one day on Twitter, he was complaining because someone had been abusive to him or something. And I just tweeted back and said, the amount of publicity you're giving your book every morning, the rest of the writing world would dream of.
Right.
He said. And then, you know, lo and behold, he'll be in the top 5 bestsellers for Christmas list. You know, and me, and not just me, but all the other authors in the world who've spent a long time writing these books will never be seen. But you know, people like him will always sell more.
I look at people like that, and I always question: did you really write the book?
Yes.
Or did you have somebody write it for you? You know, and it's getting a ghostwriter and giving them the idea and letting them run with it is, you know, fine. A lot. I mean, people do that.
Yeah.
But I always wonder, you know, I wrote this book on a weekend, and did you really?
I think someone like Piers Morgan, having been a journalist, or still is, he probably does write it. But the one that makes me laugh is sports stars who I mean, in this country, there's commercial radio station Talk Sport, and they quite often have people on and say, "Oh, I'll quote you from your book," and you can tell they haven't got a clue what they're on about because they probably never read it themselves.
No,
you know, they're pictures on the cover, and that sold millions of books. You know, and so they're not too bothered. And I'm sure the ghostwriter isn't, but it is quite funny. They'll quite often say, "So who was it you were talking about when you said such and such?" And you can hear it's just brilliant.
It was a private conversation. Well, why'd you put it in your book? Well, Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I always wonder as well, having written the book now and knowing how long it takes, when you get these ghostwriters, how long do they actually have with that celebrity, if it's a footballer or a golfer or someone like that, before they write that book? You'll see them write, oh yeah, I knew all about it. And you just think, how long did you actually speak to each other?
Right.
And how much interaction was there about the book? Or is it just, I could write a book about 10 different footballers tomorrow, but none of it would be true. So it does make me laugh. But I think that's my biggest bugbear is stars of TV and movies coming on to plug their books all the time when they're already loaded anyway. Why do they need to make more money?
It's just another box on the checklist.
Yeah.
I am a published author. Yeah, okay, whatever.
And that's another thing as well with having not been a writer before, to say that I'm an author now. And again, people in the writing community sort of asking, when can you say that you're an author? Is it when you're first published, or it's when you've written the book, or when you've written something? That makes you an author. The fact that you don't go and introduce yourself as an author every time you meet somebody new is slightly different if you've only written a couple of poems and a short story. But it is strange how a lot of authors in the writing community are scared to say that they're authors, because they don't think they've had the sort of skills, or they don't think they've had the sales that they can call themselves an author. And it's quite sad, really, because, as you say, you can be an author as soon as you've written something.
I think in general, authors are probably a little introverted. I also think that I don't know why, but even some of the best-selling authors are like, yeah, I write, I wrote books, and yeah, I guess I'm an author, but
That's what I mean.
you can read my stuff if you want to. I mean, hopefully you enjoy it, and it'd be really great if you did, but it's all right. It's my book, and they're very humble about it, almost to the point to where they kind of degrade themselves. And
I've noticed that, and I think it might be because when people write, you're writing from the heart or from your mind, and you're worried how other people are going to read it.
Right.
And maybe it's a little look inside you that you don't normally do. I'm sure there's authors who have got a very small group of friends, but the minute they start writing and their thoughts and emotions come out, and other people will read that. So do you know what I mean? It's quite a way of looking into someone's mind, reading a book, which maybe is why people are a bit, I don't know, a bit bashful about it.
See, I think the biggest fear of most authors are people like you.
In what way?
Oh, well, you see, if there's a string of murders around and somebody says, hey, let's look at this guy's search history on Google, because that's how we do research nowadays. A CSI is going to come in here, confiscate all my computers, and then I'll be hauled to jail. That'll be it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
we don't have any real proof, but this guy's search history, he's definitely screwed up. So yeah, we need to, if we can't hold them for this, we got to hold them for something.
I never thought of it that way, actually. Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah, but then I suppose, you've got to be in that position in the first place for people to be searching your Google history.
I was talking to a lady. I said, okay, so what's the weirdest thing you've ever searched on Google? How to peel skin and keep them alive. It's like, yeah, you're going to jail. That's it. You're done. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts.
But when someone says, I've read a few things like that, but when someone says it, you just think, what were you writing about?
Oh, I know what she was writing, and it's not cool. It actually is really cool. It's a horror story, but it's a graphic, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna peel you like a peach. Okay, cheers.
Another one that came up a few weeks ago again on Twitter was mainly writing community again. Have you ever met a murderer? And of course, obviously we have, because we've dealt with them and everything like that. But some of the far-fetched, well, my sister went to school with someone who turned out to be like, I don't think that's what the theme was about, really. There was a couple of scary ones as well, who'd been ex-girlfriends of people who turned out to be murderers and things like that. But yeah, it is, as you say, it's how, search histories and people's backgrounds, I think they only come into fruition if you've done something really bad.
I'm not going to confirm or deny anything. I just don't think I should talk about it anymore. Just kidding.
Just keep it to yourself.
Well, living in Wisconsin, that's where I'm from in the United States, not too far away is Milwaukee. And there was a serial killer there named Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, yes,
I don't know if you've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's lots of memes about this, but at times, but his neighbor had no idea that he was a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's always been good to me. He's always been a really nice guy. He's got body parts in his fridge and all sorts of weird crap happening, and people coming in but never leaving his house. Just weird stuff like that. And I just always wonder what it'd be like to be that neighbor going, huh, well, that all makes sense now. But before, I thought he was a great guy. I mowed his lawn for him. It's like,
yeah, it's always made me wonder, because in America you do quite well on the serial killer front.
well,
we don't seem to have many in this country. We've only had one or two. You seem to have quite a few over there.
We like to overdo it over here,
But why? What's the reason?
I have no idea. I just, it's just one of those things that our society likes to produce serial killers.
But there must be something in the American psyche that makes people become serial killers more. Maybe it's just because you've got more people. That's all it is.
We're just crazy. That's just what it is. We're nuts.
Yeah. It's just funny, and whenever we sort of chatted about it at work, things like that, because we don't have many in the UK, and if they are, they're quite one every decade almost. There's not that many, but you seem to have one in every state most years.
I was watching a documentary where they were tracking, and they think there's a serial killer that's been on the loose for 20 years that they've never caught, that goes from state to state to state to state to state.
Yeah.
And, it's just, they're starting to see a pattern but he changes the way he kills them based on the state, but now he's made it all the way through, and now he's going back again, and they see, oh, well, there's two. And it was just like, I was watching this and I'm like, holy crap. This guy has left bodies in every state if this is true. And for like the last 20 years, oh, wow.
But not so much nowadays because of computer systems and things like that. But we, in the UK and probably in America as well, if you moved from state to state, you didn't always get caught, because a lot of forces, not so much now again, but 20 years ago, very insular. They would only deal with their own stuff and would forget to, involve other forces. And I know in some murder investigations that caused problems in this country, and I'm sure it did in the States as well, because in some ways even more, because you've got every state had its own almost police force, didn't it? And the sharing of information and the sharing of evidence in those sort of jobs would mean that if you just did one murder in every state and moved on, you'd be pretty hard if you got caught, really, because everyone's investigating their own little murder, whereas now it's slightly different. Everything's computerized and everything's shared. So in those days it was it'd be interesting to know how many actually did do that.
There's been a few TV shows that have been There's
Don't
one.
believe TV shows. I told you that already.
Well, I know, but there's one that was really good when I was a kid called Chiefs, and it was about the chief of police in this town. Yeah, it started like in the 30s or 40s, I think, or whatever. And it actually follows the life of a serial killer that lived in this town. And once the chief of police kind of got an idea that this guy was killing people, because he'd take hitchhikers and people that were, whatever, and he'd bury him on his
Yeah.
and something would happen to that cop, to the chief of police, and sometimes it would be, just a hazard of the job and he would die or whatever. But this serial killer is really lucky. And what was really cool about it is this one chief caught him red-handed, and the serial killer actually killed him and hid the body, and he got away with it. And it was like, let's say in the 60s or 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that guy's son actually came back and became chief of police and caught the serial killer. It was a really, it was an interesting plot, I guess, or whatever. But I remember that from when I was a kid. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Holy, the kid got him,
Yeah. I think that, and that's the other thing, going back to crime series on TV, you can probably remember the ones you saw when you were kids or youngsters, because they stand out in your mind. And in this country, I think a lot of probably police officers that are around now started because of TV programs that they watched back in the 80s or whatever, and I imagine that happens in the US as well. You watch, as you say, you can still remember the detectives you liked, the police you liked from different programs, and then once you start working, and you just think, let's go for the police, and you get a job there, you find yourself being that person.
You might, yeah. That's very.
I suppose the same works for serial killers as well.
They find a serial killer that, yeah. I don't know. I think they're on a different planet, but anyway, we're running up on an hour here, so
okay,
it's probably time, given the nighttime and everything. I just want to tell you that it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And to you as well.
I do hope that you enjoy your football over there. Now that that's opening back up and things are kind of unlocking themselves.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Well, the rumours are that it's all going to happen over Christmas, and then January there'll be another lockdown.
Yeah, that's the bright side of things. Way to be Mr. Optimism there.
That's without the vaccine, of course. Once we're all vaccinated, we'll be like Popeye wandering around with arms like Popeye.
I'm sure that vaccine will work out well for everybody. So I think they're going to test it in the UK first.
Yes. No, the Russians have already done theirs, haven't they? They did it like 3 months ago.
Yeah, we'll never know how that turned out. They've got that whole Siberian section of their country where they just stick people and,
mutant people all living in one sort of area of the Ukraine or something like that.
Yeah, there hasn't been a movie about that at all. I'm sure everything will work out great.
I'm sure it will.
I'm looking forward to writing about it. Just kidding.
There will be too many books on the market about it, so don't worry. You'll have to think of something a bit more original than that now.
I've got an idea.
But I don't think viruses are going to be much. There's just going to be too many viruses around, isn't there?
And that's it. They are going to pop up, and who knows if anybody will want to read them or not. It might be too real.
Exactly.
You
need to think of a book about something that's the perfect murder or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds like a really great idea. I just don't have the background to write it.
Yeah.
All righty. Again, Brian, it's been great talking to you.
And to you. It's been nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I just want to sign off by saying, this is Jeff with the DIY Writer Podcast. And if you wouldn't mind, follow me on Podbean or iTunes or iHeartRadio or wherever you happen to listen to podcasts. And please, subscribe to my channel. Or if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my channel there. Other than that, I bid you a good day. Keep your chin up and have a great day, evening, afternoon, morning, whatever you happen to be doing. Bye.
Please hit the subscribe button. I get a bonus for every subscriber and I only need 1,506 more to become a full-time paid employee. Help me please.